No DQ Galaxy, we are live with No DQ&A video, the official Q&A video series of NoDQ.com. Thank you all so much for your continued support of NoDQ.com. If this is your first time watching, my name is Aaron Rift. I am here to answer some wrestling questions. I've been doing this for many years, going back decades now, covering wrestling, discussing wrestling, giving my thoughts. So let's get right into it. I already have a lot of email questions to get through. Super chats are very much appreciated. And if you super chat a question, any wrestling question you have, it will take priority and go to the front of the line. Send in your super chats. Feel free to leave your comments in the chat room. If I need some help, I will reach out. Sometimes I get stumped with a question, and I may need some of the No DQ Galaxy members to chime in. Thank you to everybody in the chat room for your participation. Let's get started. Ian sent in a couple of questions. Ian gets the first question tonight, which is the headline, first headline at least. Ian's question is, at Bad Blood, what if there is a swerve, and he's not talking about Swerve Strickland, with the Bloodline and Cody Rhodes Roman Reigns tag team match? What if Roman Reigns betrays Cody Rhodes and it was a ruse, or does Cody turn heel and betray Roman Reigns? I would say both of those scenarios are highly unlikely in all likelihood. If Vince Russo was running WWE, I'd say there's a shot. But Roman Reigns is not going to turn against Cody. Roman Reigns is arguably the hottest babyface in the company above Cody. It's certainly arguable. WWE spent the better part of a decade trying to get Roman Reigns to where he's at right now, where he is the guy and he's beloved by everyone, or almost everyone. I'm sure there's a few fans out there that do not care for Roman Reigns. That's not happening. Could Cody turn against Roman? I also do not see that happening, and here's why. The Rock is coming back at some point. You're going to have that match with Cody Rhodes and The Rock. Rock is a heel. He came back. He turned heel. He was fantastic. He needs to come back as a heel. He's going to have that match with Cody Rhodes, and he's probably going to have that match with Roman Reigns. I don't see either of those turns happening, but I would not rule out, as Matthew pointed out, a scenario where Jacob Fatu and Solo have a falling out. At first, I thought we were getting Bloodline versus Bloodline at Survivor Series. Now I'm not so sure, unless WWE has a game plan and they're trying to throw us off the scent a little bit. But that is a scenario. Solo Sikoa kicked out of the new Bloodline and has to go back to Roman Reigns. I would not rule it out. I think that it's certainly a possibility, but if I had to make a prediction right now, and eventually I will give my actual official predictions, I would say the new Bloodline wins this straight up, and you give them the heat and you set up the War Games match as what we've all been expecting to happen, new Bloodline versus old Bloodline. Thank you for the question, Ian. Got an email here from Dwayne Atkinson, longtime No DQ viewer and occasional panelist. Dwayne said, what are your thoughts on Smackdown possibly going to 3 hours? Didn't they already experiment with it once before? This has been a hot topic in wrestling today. Smackdown possibly going to 3 hours now that the show has moved over to USA Network. USA Network is used to having 3-hour shows every week. Now they only have 2 hours. Could it happen? I would not be surprised if it does. Am I a fan of the idea? No. I think that there's already too much programming. The only positive I can make out of it is that it will give more time for the talent. More people will be able to be showcased. That's a positive. WWE will have more time to showcase those superstars. But as a viewer, it's too much. I can live with one show being 2 hours and one show being 3, but I'm not expecting Raw on Netflix to be 2 hours. I'm feeling like that is going to be 3 hours. And then if you add 3 hours to SmackDown, that's 6 hours, which is something I'm not exactly looking forward to. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for all the very latest regarding that. Michael sent in an email question. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. Says, what do you think of Adam Pearce getting sick of not being able to control Big Bronson Reed and trades him to SmackDown, and he somehow ends up joining the new Bloodline? I could potentially see some trades. I wouldn't rule that out. I don't think Bronson Reed's going to SmackDown, though, because in the event that Jey Uso and Sami Zayn go over to SmackDown to be part of the Bloodline storyline, they'll be traded over, and then 2 people from SmackDown will be traded over to Monday Night Raw. I think that's what's going to happen. I think that if there's any kind of a trade, you're going to have people from SmackDown going over to Raw in exchange for Sami Zayn and Jey Uso. I think Big Bronson Reed has a lot to do on Monday Night Raw. He's hot right now. I say keep the momentum going. You have this storyline with Braun Strowman, which has been awesome, and you have other big men that Bronson Reed can feud with, maybe a Braun Breaker. Here's another one from Calvin Bowman, and then we're going to get to Dylan. Calvin sent in this email, says, do you think Bronson Reed should face Braun Breaker next, or should it be Brock Lesnar? The problem with Bronson Reed versus Braun Breaker is that they're both heels. But yes, that is a big match at some point. One of them can turn face. That's a money match. Brock Lesnar could also potentially come back and face either guy. I remember a few years ago, I was talking about how Brock Lesnar was running out of opponents. But now he can come back. He can face Gunther. He can face Braun Breaker. He can face Bronson Reed. There's a lot of options for Brock Lesnar. But yes, Bronson Reed versus Braun Breaker. I don't know about next. I think that they need to give that some more time. But if Brock Lesnar comes back soon, him versus Bronson Reed would be a hell of a match. I'd be down for it. Now, let's get to Dylan, who sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Dylan. I appreciate it. And like I said, the super chats take priority. If you send one in, send me your questions. Try to stump me. Dylan sent in a $5 super chat and says, the Judgment Day story, in my opinion, has felt very rinse and repeat and one-sided since SummerSlam. What can Triple H do to pick interest back up before Bad Blood? I've mentioned this before. I think they need a new member, or maybe even 2 new members. They need some muscle. You got Dominic Mysterio. He's a great character, but he's a cowardly heel. Nobody takes J.D. McDonough seriously. He's a punching bag. And even Finn Balor, despite Balor being pushed pretty strongly over the years, people don't really take him seriously like they do a Damian Priest. What Judgment Day needs is a 6'7", 6'8" powerhouse who can be the muscle of the group. If Wardlow's WWE contract or AEW contract ends anytime soon, he'd be a great choice to go in that role and be the muscle of the group. They need somebody like that. They need a young, physically impressive beast who can be their bodyguard, be like what Diesel was to Shawn Michaels. The problem right now is that Damian Priest You see him, and he's at a level above all the other guys. And you feel like if it was even a 1 versus 3 or 4 handicap match, that Damian Priest could probably still take them. It's hard to believe that they could all take Damian Priest in a fight. That's the big issue right now with Judgment Day. And I forgot to mention Carlito. Carlito's just another guy who's there, doesn't really have any credibility. He's basically enhancement. He's there to put over other people. Now, Building Nexus sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Building Nexus. I appreciate it. Says, what if Omos joins the new Judgment Day? That's interesting. That is certainly a possibility. Omos has nothing going on right now. MVP is gone. He wouldn't have to talk. He'd have other people that could talk for him, and he could just stand there and be intimidating and beat people up. One thing about Satnam Singh in AEW, like, he can't really do much, but they have him out there. He can be a bodyguard. He can come in and look intimidating and choke slam somebody and do those little spots here and there. That's not the worst idea in the world. Figure out something to do for Omos, put him in Judgment Day. He would be a great choice. Better than what they've been doing with him, and that would be something good for him too. I mean, I think it would be a win-win. It would be a win for Judgment Day, and it would be a win for Omos. Hey, there you go. There's a solid idea. Omos joining Judgment Day, put him in the group and give him a new push in WWE. He's not terrible. He's not great by any means, but he's a solid wrestler for his size. He can do it. Not too shabby. He's a lot better than a Great Khali. A lot better than Giant Gonzalez. I mean, he's all right. He's far from the worst big man of all time. Thank you for that, and we'll get back to the emails. Sun Goshuaku sent in this question, and it's a bit of a long one here. Sun said, based on moments and matches, which male and female talents do you consider to be Mr. and Mrs. for each big 4 WWE premium live events? And he listed the 4 here: Rumble, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series. I already have my picks, and that's an advantage to super chatting. If you guys want to send in a super chat, I don't have any time to prepare. So if you want to catch me off guard, send me a super chat question. This one, I had some time to think about it and write down my answers. I was well prepared for this one. Mr. and Mrs. Royal Rumble, I went with Shawn Michaels for the men. I think of 95, the 1 foot, that was historic. Shawn Michaels winning the whole thing after being number 1, winning it back-to-back, winning in 96, and winning the WWE title in the 97 Rumble. And then he had the casket match with Undertaker. He came back from his injury, and he had several more great Royal Rumble appearances, including making it to the end with the Undertaker and one of the best final 2 Royal Rumble moments in 2007. Shawn is my pick for Mr. Royal Rumble. You could argue Steve Austin. He won it 3 times. As for women, the women were harder to do because, first of all, the Women's Royal Rumble has only been going on since 2018. That's one thing. And for the other ones, the women's division hasn't really been pushed all that strongly until fairly recently. It was harder to make picks for the women. For the Royal Rumble, I think Charlotte would be my pick. She did win one. There's no 2-time winners yet, but she's had a couple of good Royal Rumble appearances. She's been solid. Moving on to WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels was famously Mr. WrestleMania, but he's not my pick for this one. This might be an unpopular take with some, but I'm going Roman Reigns. Look at the streak of WrestleMania main events that Roman Reigns has had year after year after year. WrestleMania main event, closing the show. He either tied Hogan or surpassed Hogan for the most WrestleMania main events. That is impressive. I'm going with Roman Reigns, and he's still not done. He's probably got several more WrestleMania main events before he calls it a career. And then for the women, I think Becky Lynch would be my choice. She won in the main event, WrestleMania 35, and she's had a lot of other solid WrestleMania matches over the past several years, going at it with Bianca Belair, going at it with Rhea Ripley. She's my pick. And I also went with her for Mrs. SummerSlam because she did the so-called turn on Charlotte in 2018, which ultimately led her career to skyrocket. And she had several more big moments at SummerSlam. She came back in 2021. For the men, Mr. SummerSlam, I have two choices. One is Bret the Hitman Hart. Bret Hart had a streak of excellent SummerSlam matches. 1990, Hart Foundation versus Demolition versus Mr. Perfect in 91, British Bulldog in 92, Jerry Lawler and Doink. That whole angle / match that they did was the best part of that SummerSlam. 94 with Owen, and then 97 with The Undertaker. Like that's a great list of matches right there. My other choice would be Brock Lesnar. I went to a lot of those SummerSlams that Brock Lesnar was in the main event. I went to every LA SummerSlam, Lesnar versus CM Punk, Lesnar versus Triple H, Lesnar versus John Cena, and then in 2015 versus Undertaker, the match with Orton in 2016, the four-way match in 2017, Reigns in 2018, 2019, Seth Rollins, 2021, he came back, 22 with Reigns. Brock Lesnar had all these big SummerSlam main events. So it's neck and neck with me between Bret Hart and Brock Lesnar. And then finally, Survivor Series, I had to go with The Undertaker. He debuted at Survivor Series. He retired at Survivor Series. And he had a lot of great moments. He appeared at almost all those Survivor Series. The casket match with Yokozuna, coming out like Batman in 96. The match with Vince McMahon in 2003 when Vince got busted open in like 5 seconds and was gushing blood. Undertaker had a lot of classic moments. And then for the women, I'd probably go with Charlotte again. But again, it's tough to go with the women for the misses because I don't feel like any one woman was overly dominant over any others. Like you could argue Charlotte, you could argue Becky, probably one of those two, but I went with Charlotte. So thank you for that, son. I appreciate it. Now, Khalid sent in this comment / question. Thank you for this. Says, hey, Aaron, I hope you're doing well. I'm a big fan. Been following your channel since 2014. Have you ever thought of recording your live reactions while watching WWE shows like some wrestling YouTubers or streamers do? I'm sure the NoDQ Galaxy would love to see that. Well, I actually did do something like this. I presume you're talking about watch-alongs, watching a show live and commenting on it, or just recording the live reactions. I have to tell you like it is. My reactions are usually not that interesting. When I'm watching a show, I'm busy taking notes, writing things down, and every once in a while, I might like, my eyebrow might raise, I might be like, whoa. But it doesn't happen often. And there's not that many things in wrestling that surprise me these days. So when I'm watching it, I more or less know what's coming, and I'm not taken off guard. The thing is, like I'd have to be recording all the time to try and capture a moment. Yes, there's the time that I reacted to Zack Ryder. That was live because we had that stipulation where I would shave my head if Zack Ryder won the title. So we were filming for that one. But usually that kind of moment just doesn't happen. You'd have to be filming yourself all the time, and sometimes you just forget to, and you have to really be on the ball with that. So yeah, I'm not the kind of person that is good at doing that type of stuff. You know, there's some people that love to ham it up for the camera and maybe overreact knowing they're being filmed, you know. It'd be cool though to get like an authentic reaction, but you know, the stars really have to align for it. Anyways, thank you for that question. And Matt sent in this email question. Thank you for that, Matt. Matt says, hello, Aaron. What did you think were the best moments in the first 3 months of the NWO after Bash at the Beach in 1996? Have a great weekend with your family. Greetings, Matt. I would say when they came out, not at the Disney studio, although I did like the whole Outsiders ambush when Rey Mysterio was thrown into the trailer like a dart. But once they got back to the arenas, when they came out there and they were destroying everybody and they spray painted the yellow streak down Randy Savage's back, and then the Giant came out there and joined them, and they tipped over the announce table, and you know, it was just pandemonium. I think Hogan used spray paint, like spray painted Ric Flair in the face. Whatever that segment was, that was fantastic. The Giant joining the NWO. And a lot of the segments with Randy Savage were really good in those first couple of months. That one Nitro where they took over the entire show, and they brought out Virgil as Vincent, and they just hijacked Nitro. Like, that was a great moment. And then Hogan's coming out there and leg dropping Randy Savage repeatedly. That was a fantastic Nitro. That was one of my favorites. Now, Jeremiah Dorset, on the topic of the NWO, sent me a long comment here. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but Jeremiah said, in your opinion, what is the greatest and worst NWO faction of all time? The original NWO was the best, of course, but in my opinion, the worst of all time were the Elite and the Wolfpack and NWO Hollywood merging after the finger poke of doom. I think the worst NWO was probably the WWE version. I hate to say it, even though it was the original. I guess I would say the final version before Kevin Nash tore his quad, when they had Shawn Michaels as part of the group and Booker T. Like, it was done. It was not the NWO we came to love. I still liked the 1999 NWO. Like, that could have had mileage if they actually built up Bill Goldberg versus Hulk Hogan and didn't do the stupid double turn with Hogan and Ric Flair. My favorite, of course, would be the NWO before Bischoff joined, because once Bischoff joined, that's when they started just having everybody join the group, whether it was Michael Wall Street or Big Bubba. And at that point, it really became watered down. But when you had like Hogan, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, The Giant, Syxx, Ted DiBiase, The Giant, that was like perfect. That was the best version of the NWO in that early period. That would be the peak for me. I also think the NWO 2000 might have had potential if Bret Hart didn't get that career-ending injury from Goldberg. Who knows where that would have gone if everybody was able to stay healthy and WCW wasn't just spiraling out of control. But thank you for that. I appreciate it. Now, Ian sent me an email question. Thank you for that, Ian. I appreciate it. Says, hi, Aaron. I hope you're having a great week. With Bad Blood around the corner, could Bad Blood go down as one of the greatest WWE B pay-per-views ever if everything hits the right beat? On paper, this is looking to be one of the strongest WWE B pay-per-views in some time, to the point where I think they should make it a longer show. But the problem is there's a UFC show and they're starting Bad Blood an hour earlier to avoid going up against the UFC and cutting into the UFC's show. This is really a show that could have 7 or 8 matches. There's so many hot feuds right now. I would like to see Braun Strowman and Bronson Reed on this show. I wanted to see Jey Uso versus Braun Breaker on this show. But, you know, they got 5, maybe 6 matches, and that's going to be it, unfortunately. But for what they do have, like, it's a hell of a card. And it definitely doesn't feel like a throwaway show like most of the B pay-per-views this year. Even though they were great being international shows, they just lacked the star power. Not so much the star power, but just didn't feel like matches where you didn't know who was going to win. This one, like the tag match, I really don't know. CM Punk, Drew McIntyre. I think I have an idea, but couldn't say for sure. I'm not super confident. I mean, there's really no match on this card where I'm like feeling very confident about the outcome. Bad Blood predictions will be the Thursday before at 8 o'clock Eastern. So that I believe that will be the Thursday, the 3rd of October. But yes, it's definitely got potential to be one of the all-time great B pay-per-views. Now we got another one here. We got one more here from Jeremiah. Jeremiah said, 2-part question. When do you see Charlotte Flair, Alexa Bliss, Shotzi Blackheart, Asuka, Dakota Kai, Raquel, and Becky Lynch returning to action by year's end or by the 2025 Royal Rumble? I think there's a solid possibility for many of those women to be back in time. Becky Lynch, I mean, could be back whenever she's ready to come back. Royal Rumble would be a great spot. The thing is, you want the returns to be special. And if you have too many people being brought back, then it'll not mean as much for the people that are returning. You don't want to have like 7 or 8 people return at the Royal Rumble. But 2 or 3, yeah. I could see Raquel potentially returning sooner. Apparently, there's talk of her coming back pretty soon. Dakota Kai depends on her injury. Same thing with Asuka. Shotzi could be returning soon, considering the trademark. I wonder if she's just going to be Shotzi Blackheart again, and then that's why they filed the trademark. Charlotte Flair should be back by the end of the year. I think Charlotte is a good candidate for coming back at the Rumble. Maybe she comes back a little bit sooner. But yeah, I would say 2 or 3 of those names will definitely end up coming back at the Royal Rumble as surprises. And then Jeremiah's other comment here, Tiffany Stratton, will she go to Raw, cashing in Money in the Bank on Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, or remaining on SmackDown and cashing in on Bayley, Naomi, or Nia Jax? What makes sense to me is cashing in on SmackDown. They've been building up Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton, and I could see a scenario where Charlotte comes back and maybe Tiffany cashes in and pins Charlotte, or maybe Charlotte wins the title from Nia and then Tiffany cashes in, and then we get Charlotte versus Tiffany. Maybe Tiffany just cashes in on Nia and then Charlotte returns, but regardless, I think we're going to see Charlotte versus Tiffany Stratton. I see that as a feud. And you got Andrade on SmackDown. Charlotte will obviously be on SmackDown. I think Tiffany will be there, although her man, Ludwig Kaiser, is over on Monday Night Raw. So you never know. But I think she'll cash it in. Maybe she'll cash it in, feud with Charlotte for a bit, and then when we get the draft, she'll go over to Monday Night Raw. But I'm expecting her to cash in on SmackDown. I don't see her cashing in on somebody from Monday Night Raw. Anyways, guys, on that note, I have gotten through all the questions. So thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. I very much appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up on NoDQ's YouTube channel. Tell a friend about NoDQ.com. Spread the word. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for all the latest wrestling news and rumors. I will be back to discuss Smackdown. We got a busy month in October. We got Bad Blood. We got AEW Wrestle Dream. Predictions, I believe, will be on Thursday at 8 for both of those premium live events. Stay tuned for that. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. Say yes to NoDQ.com, and I will see you all next time.